Hello everyone, and welcome to today's GGNA webinar on creating an interactive donor map, a case study from Southern Illinois University. I'm Lana Buseman from the marketing team here at GGNA, and we're very excited for you to join us. Before we begin today, I just want to go over some technical details. We ask that if you can, please log into WebEx before dialing in. Once you launch the webinar, a window will appear on your screen similar to what you see on slide 1. If you've already called in, please hang up and follow the instructions in the window to dial in. Then we will be able to associate your phone with your name. Next, we may ask some yes or no questions during the session. Please look at the slide on the screen to see where you can answer yes or no. Also notice the raise your hand feature. During the session, your phone will be muted. If you would like to comment or respond to a question, please click the raise hand button. We also encourage you to use the chat panel shown on slide 3 in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen for any questions or comments during the session. Please notice that we ask you to direct your question to all panelists so that the presenters and I can see it and field the question. At the end of today's session, we're going to ask everyone a 1-minute survey to let us know what you thought of the webinar, so please stick around for that. If at any point during the webinar you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please send me an email at lbuseman@grenzgleer.com. That's LBUSEMAN@GRENZGLIER.com. or call our meeting provider WebEx directly at 866-229-3239. And before I pass it off to Kat, I'd like to share some background information on today's presenters. David Schwartz is a 3-degree alum of Southern Illinois University, where he has worked as Director of Development Information Management since 1997. He leads a group of programmers and technicians who are dedicated to supporting the alumni relations and development needs of the SIU Alumni Association and the SIU Foundation. Jeff Johnson has been IT Manager for the Development and Alumni Relations Division of Southern Illinois University, Carbondale since 2006. His responsibilities include system administration, database administration, and managing the network and desktop support group. Twyla Atkinson Peak is a 2-degree alum of Southern Illinois University, where she has worked as a prospect researcher since 1989. She has served as Director of Research since 1996 and is currently working along with the other researchers in their department on prospecting from GGNA's 2013 well screening of their organization's database. Kat Banakis directs strategy and implementation for GGNA Analytics, helping clients to use data in ways that enhances their development research and forecasting in innovative ways. An award-winning public speaker, teacher, and writer, Kat also oversaw the launch of the new Donorscape in 2013.
Thank you so much, Lana. This is Kat Banakis from Grenz & Bach-Gleer & Associates, and I am thrilled to be joined today by David, Jeff, and Twyla from Southern Illinois University. We had the pleasure of beginning work with them about a year ago in the winter and spring of 2013 when we did a predictive modeling project with them. And it is an exciting day when I get to gush, and this is just one of those situations that when we saw what the Southern team had done with the data, and particularly creating interactive, constantly updated maps for their gift officers to use with the full information card in it, I was so excited, and I wanted to share it with all of you because it made me want this thing. And they've just been doing some incredibly hands-on gift officer-centric work with putting the data in ways that are really, really helpful. So with that, I want to hand it over to David and Jeff to give us some history and Twyla some color on it. So thank you, the 3 of you, for joining us today. And I think that you're in control now.
All right, thank you, Kat. This is David Schwartz, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of how we've integrated Grenz & Bach-Gleer data in our system. We'll talk a little bit about the strategy we used, and then we'll get to the mapping stuff. That seems to be the focal point for many folks, and we don't want to shortchange that, but we kind of wanted to give you some background before we jumped into the mapping. So first we're going to look at why we decided to integrate Grenzebach-Gleer data into our advancement application, which is Ellucian's Advance. Then we'll talk about a little bit about where we housed it and why we put it there, and then we'll show you how we use wealth screening data in our operations. And really the big part of that is the mapping, but we have used it in some other areas, and we've got some pretty interesting results. We wanted to put the GGA data into Advance for a couple of reasons. One was we wanted to provide some structure to how the data was used. We had an option of, giving our development staff access to DonorScape. That was certainly one thing we could do. Or we could put the data inside Advance. We felt like putting the data inside Advance would give them the familiarity of the Advance application. They've been trained on that. They hopefully use that every day to do their job. So training them on another product didn't seem to be as good an idea as putting it inside of Advance and giving them that opportunity to see that data in an arena that they see it every day. The other thing was that the GGA data really doesn't change that much. I mean, somebody might have a windfall of some sort, or they might change jobs or do things, but we process hundreds of thousands of data updates in Advance every year. And so we felt like we wanted to put the data, we wanted to use the system that was less volatile, or more volatile, I guess, for the data that is less volatile. So we moved, we implemented the data from Grenzebach-Gleer into Advance because we knew people move, their addresses change, people have seasonal addresses, those kinds of things. So we really wanted the data to be current in terms of what the development staff saw. And then we really wanted to be able to use it for more than one thing. Using it for DonorScape is great. Our prospect research staff do that. But we wanted to be able to leverage that data in other environments. And so you'll see how we did that in just a few minutes. We put it, for those who are Ellucian customers, we put it in 3 different areas in Advance. We put it in demographic profiles, which we call external ratings, evaluations, and then we had some wealth and asset data as well. So those are the 3 main areas we put it into Advance, and we're going to show you a little bit of that from the application's perspective. As you can see, there were a number of different types of ratings that we got back from Grenzebach-Gleer, and so we put each of those in a different area. Most of those landed in our external rating, or out-of-the-box Advance would be demographic profile area. In this case, you see the major gift rating, and that is a relative scale. So the top 5% of our prospect base that we had screened fell into this, and you can see Sam Saluki. Saluki is our mascot. Saluki is an Egyptian hunting dog, so don't fear that Sam is a real person. He's not. But you can see that Sam fell into the top tier, so his major gift level is a point. He's in the top 0.5%. You can see the different levels we had. A would be anybody who is in the top 0.5%. B would be anybody from the top 1.5% to 0.6%, and so on. So most of our folks would land in the 85% or the lowest level. And so we have that ABCD scale that we use, and that's just, that's right in Advance. So anyone who looks at a prospect can go into Advance and they can see what their major gift rating was. The other thing we looked at is philanthropic capacity, and you can see that too is ordinal in the sense that Mr. Sam Saluki is in the 4th most likely to give to a philanthropic cause. So you can see we put the coding into Advance, and then in the comment it sort of is a little more descriptive to say this is from our 2013 Grenzebach-Gleer & Associates Wealth Screening. So we have that kind of information. You can see the coding scheme that was used. That's basically based on the data that Grenzebach, Glier and Associates return. So most likely, second most likely, third most likely, on down to least likely. We also got a planned giving rating from Grenzebach, Glier. So we basically use the same kind of notion to put that into external ratings. And you can see this person is a primary prospect for planned giving. And the codes we got were primary, secondary, tertiary, and then a non-prospect. Some that Grenzebach, Glier assessed as not really being a planned giving prospect for us. We also got an annual gift rating. And you can see that Mr. Sam Saluki and his wife Sally were rated with an annual giving potential of $5,000 plus, which I believe is the top level. And so you can see the different coding scheme we have there. Someone could be up to $100 annual giving prospect, all the way up to $5,000 plus. And we've used that for some segmentation in our annual fund calling. We also have the giving capacity. You can see that Mr. Sam Saluki and his wife Sally are probably going to be able to give anywhere from $250,000 to $999,999 in the next 5 years to a cause they hold near and dear to their heart, and we hope that's Southern Illinois University.
Well, with a name like Sam Saluki, the odds are good.
One would hope. He probably was a student mascot, wore the Saluki dog uniform around the arena basketball games. But you can also, another thing I didn't point out, you can see in the left-hand column in the detail part of that screen, there's a level, that's the EN for exact near match. There's exact near possible, which is the lowest level of confidence that a match might have based on name and address information. Then there's exact near. That's something that had our attention because it had a much higher level of confidence. We also have another level that we've added, and that's verified, which means that our prospect research staff have gone out and made certain that that is that person and that is the level that we believe they are based on the information we have. And you can see the giving capacities goes all the way up to 10 million plus. So that's kind of the coding that we used for that. Basically, Grenzebach Glier coding just applied in advance. Another thing that we put in external ratings were PRISM codes. Claritas is a company that basically assigns a code to every household in the United States, I believe. And you can see we put that Claritas PRISM code in external ratings, and Sam Saluki and his wife are the big fish, small pond, upscale, older without kids category. And so let me just kind of show you a little bit. Here's a blurb that tells what PRISM codes are. There are 66 different segments, and they're used for all sorts of marketing. And we are employing that. We actually did a Grenzebach Glier screening back in the late 80s and still have those codes available in our system, but we've put these in. This is the description for Sam and Sally Salukis. Again, there are 66 of these. They have some interesting names. Some are like shotguns and pickups, new homesteaders, in this case, big fish, small pond. But it gives a description of who these people are based on their spending habits and the kinds of things that they spend money on. So we actually use PRISM codes quite successfully, and I'll talk about that here in a minute with some alumni activities. We also put some information in our own evaluations. Evaluations is more or less our internal evaluation, and we picked out folks who we felt had the affinity to SIU and the capacity to give a $100,000 plus gift. And so we call those our principal gift prospects. And we've been using those for some portfolio analysis and definition, and we use them for selections for several activities that we do. We also put some information in wealth and assets. We got the Axiom estimated home value, and so you can see Sam and Sally were rated at $250,000 to $999,000 in terms of their giving capacity, but it looks like they've only been credited with a $25,000 to $49,999 home. Now that could be one of their second homes. This is not an exact science. So we also know of their homes, and so we could put that in wealth and assets. And you can see there's other wealth and asset information. It says they own a small place on San Marco Island down in Florida, I believe, is where that's located. So this is just, you have to kind of keep in mind that this is sort of a piece of the puzzle that you build based on the things that you know, and use Grinzenbach-Gleer or other screenings to fill in those holes. You can also see their household income, and it estimates that their household income is at $125,000 or more, and I do believe that's the top end of what we got.
Right.
So, there are instances where a lot of dual income households are going to have that rating. So I'd say
exactly.
a large number of our folks that we got back would have that rating, but that gives a development officer just an idea of how much money they may have available. We use it in a number of different ways. One, I mentioned portfolio development and those principal gift prospects, but that has been something that we've done. We've kind of based some of our decisions on the Grinzenbach-Gleer results. Telefund segmentation has been big. We saw the annual fund ratings that we got. We're using that to make sure that the most experienced callers are associated with people who are most likely to give, and most likely to give that $5,000 plus number. We've done some targeted annual fund solicitations. For years, we've done a calendar mailing in the fall where we would send a pocket calendar to folks and put a solicitation in that. This time we decided, because of cost, we would drop the calendar and just do a fall solicitation, but make it a little more targeted, and we found that to be highly effective. The Alumni Association, we did I didn't show it in the presentation, but we also got a membership rating, and so the Alumni Association folks have used that for, we have a dues-paying membership program, so they've used that for membership calling. And then one of the neat stories is how we've used PRISM codes with our travel partners, our affinity travel partners. And we have a professor, a guy named Scott Ishman, who is an expert on Antarctica. And one of our affinity partners approached us and asked if we would be interested in doing a travel program to Antarctica. Now, sometimes you have 40, 50, 60 people on a travel program. We weren't looking for 40 or 50 or 60 people. If we were able to get, I believe the threshold was 10 people interested, the affinity partner would send Dr. Ishman to Antarctica with this group. And
how neat.
Yeah, we were able to use those PRISM codes to decide who might be most likely to travel. And those codes do have a lot of detail on how people spend their money. And we found people who were a couple of different segments had travel as being one of the ways they really spent money, especially if they didn't have kids in the home currently. And so we were able to get 10 people to go. I think we got a little more than 10, but I think they had like a maximum of 15 people on this travel program. And we were able to get that done and really attribute a lot of that to that Claritas PRISM code segmentation that we did. And Dr. Ishman was able to go with them, and they got a personal tour from someone who is an expert on that area of the world. So that was kind of neat.
What a fantastic application.
Yeah, we've been trying to find ways to sort of think outside the box with how we're using this data, and that was one neat way that we did it. And obviously the one that we've advertised, the one that most folks want to see is, and the one that Kat really talked up, was how we use wealth screening in our operations in terms of mapping. And we had a real need. A lot of our development officers are very visually oriented people. So some people are visual learners, and they definitely seem to fit that mode. And so one of the things that we realized was a need, and we talked to our director of development about how we can represent this data in a way that makes it very meaningful to our development staff. And so we worked with our prospect research group. Jeff's going to talk a lot more about the details of this, but we wanted to be able to put this information out in a way that they would use it. We've always been putting out information in like spreadsheet form and those kinds of things. We've been doing that for a number of years, but it seems like with visual learners, if they can see it on a map, they can grasp it conceptually, and they kind of want to run with it. So we were trying to meet a business need that our development staff had by putting this GGA data in their hands as quickly as possible in a way that was as meaningful as we could possibly make it. So I'm going to transition it over to Jeff. He's going to talk about more details and give you a little bit of a demo on how we've implemented Grenzebach-Lehr data into a mapping solution for our development staff. So, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff Johnson, IT manager, and I work closely with our research department in this solution and with David and with the executive director of development to kind of pull together what data elements we need to pull in, what the initial populations would be, and that sort of thing. So, so there was a lot of hands involved, not just the technical side. So, anyhow, what I'm going to go through is at first is just kind of all the pieces and parts that have to be pulled together to make something like this possibility. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the technical hurdles that we had to overcome without getting too technical, and then we'll go into the demonstration. So just on this slide right here, up there at the top here, and I'll use my mouse pointer here to kind of help, this will be our list of maps. This is the map right here, and this area over here is our initial selection. And I'm going to go bring that up into a slide so that you can see what we're talking about. So that particular map was for the business development group, and this is their initial selection. So you can see where we had some of the GG+A rating information as part of that. So let me just move on into the components. So the first thing that you have to accomplish is how you actually geocode the addresses of the population that you're talking about. And so one of the tools that David found was this Smarty Streets API. And what it is allows us to, from our database, directly geocode our addresses for whichever population we want, for any address we want. And it's a free service to nonprofits. So it's a very useful tool that ended up not costing us anything. In fact, this entire solution didn't really cost us anything, except when we were first getting going, we didn't know about the Smarty Streets, and so we had to do some geocoding, and we spent, I think, $20 to geocode, a handful of those until we found this. So we have really no money tied up into this solution.
Hey Jeff, for the non-technical on the call, can you tell us what API and geocode indicate?
Sure. So API is the Application Programmer Interface, and this is how our database can actually connect with Smarty Streets without a human doing it. And so I have a program that goes out, it goes to the web service that they have out there at Smarty Streets, it plugs in all the information, and it returns, Smarty Streets would then return back the information that I requested. In this case, it's a geocode. A geocode is the actual longitude, latitude coordinate of a physical address. And so that is how Google Maps works. That's how it knows how to plot pins on a map and such. And so the geocodes are what make this work. And so yeah, sure. The next piece there is, of course, the Google Maps. Again, that's an API sort of thing. So you could see back in that previous slide where this map is actually integrated within our application, but it's really Google's application interface that is bringing that, drawing that map on that area. And so that's, again, called an API, and that's what Google Maps offers. with that, you have to have a valid Google account, and that really means any type of account that Google holds. And so that's, again, a free thing. That's free for anybody, really, not just nonprofits, to use this functionality. The next piece there is our application that we're integrating, and for anybody that may be an Ellucian customer that's using Advance, they use a notion of applications and forms, and that's basically just how they house the actual programs and how they display things. And so what I was illustrating when I did this presentation for our Advanced group is that we're using, everything is out-of-the-box Advanced tools, and we're just pulling in these APIs. We didn't do any modification as far as the application goes. So it really was truly integrated. And then there are some other supporting components, and I'll get into that later, but that really gets into the technical weeds, so I'll probably just breeze past that. But a couple of those is just how we would actually do the transfer between us and Smarty Streets and us and Google to get the map data back. And so there's a couple things there. So the features that we included with this is basically the full integration with Advance, which is the highest priority. And with that, we don't have any external mapping applications like Microsoft's what's called MapPoint or anything like that. There was no additional files. Like I said before, we didn't do any modification to the actual Advanced application itself as far as core files and things like that. The entire thing is driven from the database, so we don't have any external programs that are running and making this happen. So again, we're not modifying Advance in any way. And again, we're using standard Advance ways of creating applications and forms. And by doing that, we don't have any problems with Advance upgrades. There should be nothing should rock the boat on this when it comes to Advance upgrades. So that was a pretty important piece. The next piece was our Executive Director of Development really wanted some sort of pop-up information box that would give a little bit information about the household that we're dealing with on that PIN. And so we worked with her in research and tried to figure out which pieces and parts make the best information box for a development officer. And so the user basically would click on the pin on the map and it would pop up this display window of that entity. And we added some links to be able to open up that entity record within our Advanced application without navigating away from the map. And then also a directions link. So from there, they click that link and it goes straight to Google Maps and allows you to do directions. You can do the street view of the house and that sort of thing.
And just so people know, was this designed primarily for gift officers to be filling travel pools? I mean, I know it had many applications, but is that why the directions was a key part?
Primarily, yeah. So they can kind of, if they know they're going somewhere, they can get, and I haven't really gotten into this filtering, which I'm coming up with next, but they could filter their map based on different things to kind of give them an idea of who they could go visit. And again, their initial selection for their particular map already has some built-in selection there, so they already know that these are on their radar to begin with. And then they can filter it down and get a little bit more focus for that particular need, whatever it is, if it's travel or whatever, if they're just doing research or what have you. So yes. So the next feature there is the filtering mechanism. And what that allows us to do is to basically focus the amount of pins based off of these filters. So we have high giving area, college, team leader, the gift rating and gift capacity, which are from our GG+A data. And it basically will show or hide the pins based on those selections in real time. And so we handle all the filtering, back to the technical side, on the actual client's browser. So whenever we load the map, it basically pulls it all to the client's browser, and then when they filter, it happens without having to make a round trip back to the server and that kind of thing. So it's really, really fast for the filtering part. So the other thing they wanted to do is they didn't want just one general map, and then we filter and we can't do initial selection, so we added in support for multiple maps. So I think we're up to 17 maps now. We've got maps for all of the academic units, and we also have maps for the library, have maps for other causes like scholarships, and we also did some maps for, or a map for the School of Medicine, and we kind of did a little extra modification there to do some different filters for them. And again, we did all this with advanced techniques, and so we future-proofed ourselves with upgrades, so we're fine there. And then the final feature there is that we periodically refresh the map data. You know, people move, and addresses gets updated. So we have a nightly job that goes out, takes all the maps, gets a list of all of the addresses that are involved in all of the maps, and re-geocodes anything that has changed. And so I have a table in there that kind of tracks that if there's been an address update since the last time the map was rebuilt, and it will just geocode those addresses. So that process takes about an hour to do all 17 maps. Some maps have upwards of 7,000 pins on them, and so you can see that we have a lot of addresses tied up into these.
This is David, but if you hear some banging in the background, we apologize for that. Our building roof has been leaking for a couple of years now, and they decided to replace the roof, and this is the most inopportune time for them to come back from lunch, but they just started working again. So we don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but we're definitely hearing some hammering or something going on up above us.
We can hear it, but we would rather there be a little audio than that you be dripped on, I suppose. So we're glad that they're working. Hey, while we're paused, we had a question come in here, which was talking about security concerns related to using donor names and addresses with public free sources. There's no way that Smarty Streets and Google Maps is extracting donor capacity.
Oh, no.
No. And actually, right. If you read through their agreements, that's already addressed that they don't have that access. How this works is, being an application programmer interface, it establishes a secure communication stream between that service and us, and all we pass is address info to Smarty Streets. No name, no nothing. It's literally the street address, and that's it. So that we're covered there. On Google, we're passing even less. We pass just the coordinates. And then the info box is actually rendered directly on the person's browser, so it never actually touches Google for the info side. That's done kind of separate. So we're covered there, and even if we looked at their agreements, which I did, they assure that. In fact, Google won't allow us to store any data that, if we used Google to do our geocoding, they have the thing where they say you cannot store that information because that's their information, which is why we went with Smarty Streets. So that allowed us to basically make a static map because it would load a lot quicker. And when we first kind of went down this path, we were trying to geocode on the fly. Well, when you get into 7,000 addresses that need a geocode, that takes time, a lot of time.
Sure.
And so that just couldn't happen. And so we wanted to store those geocodes, and we have plans for using them in other ways, so it really makes sense for us to store those. And so that's why we went with Smarty Street, and they're fine with it. That's the service they provide.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So let me move on into how we the approach that we did on the development of this thing, and I'm just kind of breeze through this part because it kind of gets into the technical part of it, but just to kind of give you an idea of what was involved, and then we'll get into the demonstration. So we basically put together a quick proof of concept, which basically meant it was very ugly looking and chunky, but we brought it to the executive director of development and research, and we kind of said, will this work for you? And so once we got through that part, they got all the information back to us as far as feedback on how we want to arrange everything, how we want the information box to look and operate and all that. Then we rolled it out in 2 phases. The initial phase was now they're drilling on that. They're patching the holes and now they're making new ones. That's good. So the first phase was to just get the maps out there. We knew that we wanted to use this data as fresh as it was, and so we wanted to get those maps out there as soon as possible. So we did kind of a manual process on the initial geocoding until really we found Smarty Street. And so that took some time, but it was easier to do that than to figure out how to automate this, which took, a couple extra weeks to really figure out. But up till this first phase, we only had about 2 weeks of development time here to really get this process to the point where it could be in the production environment. And then it took an additional week or 2 to automate the process. So that's what that second phase is for. So in the development part of this, we needed some things. So we needed the address geocoding procedure or program. We needed a program that would build the map and store it. And then we had to address some of the problems that kind of came along the way, which the biggest one was the amount of memory that it took to generate and run these maps. So what it does is the program goes through each address and geocodes it, stores that geocode. The map building process takes that and adds in all the coding to create that pin. Well, each pin took at least a few lines of code. I don't know exactly how many now, but the problem that we dealt with was that once you generated the map with, say, 7,000 pins, you had about 40 or 50,000 lines of generated code there. And so what we did is we took extra steps to get rid of unnecessary stuff like white space, tabs, and all that kind of thing. And we really were able to reduce that by quite a margin, and it really made those maps load a whole lot quicker. And what we were experiencing with out of memory errors was that we could only support maybe 3 or 4 people bringing up a map, which wasn't functional. In fact, we were kind of freaking out and thought this was going to drown on us. And so we kind of did a little thinking outside of the box and try to reduce the amount of characters that were coming across and all that. That makes it run quicker, run faster. And then we found a way to use more memory by switching from a 32-bit environment to a 64-bit environment. Again, getting way into the technical part of it, but
yep, that's more than we need.
But basically, we were having problems, and it was going to be a showstopper if we couldn't resolve it. So that's what it boiled down to.
We have a question.
I'm sorry?
Check your question.
So there's a question about addresses and whether we can, when you're on the application, and maybe you can just point this out when we go into the demo now, whether you can toggle between home and work address for them.
So what we did was, this is all household, and really it goes off a preferred address. So the answer to that question is no, but what we wanted was their preferred address as being what gets on the pin. So that was.
And certainly within advance, you can look up the two.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sure.
The challenges, I already talked about a lot of these. Finding a quick and easy way to geocode. The filtering. Now this was something that, with every little filter they wanted to add, it really added complexity to the filtering logic within the programming. And so we started
What were some of the filter requests that people had?
We had, they wanted the highest giving area they wanted the college that, you know, if they were an alum of that college or their spouse was. So I started out with, they definitely want to do the GG+A data, so the gift rating and all that. But then they added in team leader, they added in, you know, all this other stuff, and everything they added a bunch of extra thought and programming.
Memory and
that
sure.
So anyway, we were able to work it out, but it was definitely something to overcome. So we can just get into the demonstration. And see if I can, here we go. Of course I got logged out. And you know I'm not going to get this right the first time. Of course not. All right.
Okay, we got time.
Okay, so this is our application. We're in our test system. What we did for development officers, or actually all users that have access to this, is we put this link right here in the navigation tree, is what we call this area. And so they could just click on that. It brings up a new tab within the application. This is not a browser tab, you know, like we have up here. This is an application tab. And Advanced runs all these tabs so that you can easily switch back and forth, but without going through your browser. So anyway, we're starting out here with our agriculture. This might be small for some of you guys to read, but this is the College of Ag's Portfolio Development Map. And so up here we have our list of maps, and so we can kind of scroll through all the different maps we have. And then you have the map canvas, is what Google officially calls this area, and it has our pins on there, of course. You still have your scrolling ability. You can move the map around and all that sort of thing. And then over here we have our initial selection criteria for why all these pins are here. And then if we scroll on down, we have all our different filters. So we have filter for the highest giving area, so they could pick agriculture, athletics, or, you know, whatever. The college, so this is the if they're an alum of these colleges or their spouse is an alum of these colleges. We added in this little and or to help define what they're really looking for. Some of them are looking for people where their highest giving area is athletics and they're in the College of Ag as an alum. Or we could do it, or they're a College of Ag, and that could give you different results. And so, of course, that added a whole lot of complexity to our filtering programming, but we got there. And then we have our team leaders, so these are the people who are assigned to that particular individual or household. And then we have our gift rating. So that's that A, B, C, D that we were talking about before, which was the I can't remember exactly.
The top level, second level,
right.
Most likely to give.
And we have those right here as kind of a little help area for them to recall. And you see the little pluses here. What that basically means is a B plus includes A and B. A C plus includes A, B, and C. So we can get a cumulative or we can go specific and just pick a B. You know, same sorts of idea with the gift capacity with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or whatever. Again, if they did a 3 plus, then it'd be the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay, and then we added a count so they knew how many pins are out here. With this data, research also gives them a spreadsheet, which gives them a little extra information, but all of this stuff ties together. And so whenever they update their spreadsheet that they hand out to those, they ask me to update the map. And so we have that automated process. All they have to do is supply me the list, which in advance is called a clipboard, and then I just regenerate the map. Usually takes about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how many addresses it has to geocode. But the development officer is giving the tools to kind of work together. So they have their spreadsheet, they have the map, so they should be equipped. So on this map, I'm just going to do a couple filters here just to illustrate. So we can click on, so we're on the ag map. So what if we wanted to look at where the highest giving area is athletics, just to give us something to kind of filter on. And we'll say, and their college, college of all, of course, is ag. And so that brought us down to 80 pins. okay? Again, remember the initial selection. So this
Sure.
is reducing that selection down to 80 pins, and you can kind of see how everybody's arranged. You can, using your scroll on your mouse, you can scroll into the different areas. You can, we could further define this by the team leader or the gift rating. So if we were to do gift rating of a C+, now it brought it down to 58 pins, and so you can go on and on. So I'm going to bring this out to kind of reset this a little bit. All right, so what I've done now is I've done a selection where I wanted the College of Ag, and they have a gift rating of C+ and a capacity of 3+. Again, how that all ties out is down here in their help. So we'll just pick somebody. We'll go way out here at Arizona. So this is a information window, and so whenever they click on the pin, it pops up this person. This particular person, we completely falsified all the data here. So, but basically what we have is we have our Sam, Bobby, Sue, Saluki, and what we did off the information windows, we basically did it in 2 columns. So you have the both entities, and then we have their primary college. So this is the if they're an alum of agriculture in this case, which Sam Saluki is, but Bobby Sue isn't. And so also the next row is the total giving that they have given. And again, this is why we want our maps updated nightly, so we get all this data as fresh as possible, including the address updates, the giving, the team leader, all this information. We want all up to date as much as possible. The team leader, so this particular person is not assigned, and the last contact date, so this is the last time that we've talked to them in some capacity, somehow made contact with them. And then the last contact type, in this case, was face-to-face. We put down here what their gift rating was. So the A3 is taking these two together. So you got the gift rating and the gift capacity together. The V is verified. Research verified that this person is who we think they are, and then whether they're in plain giving, a plain giving alum or donor or not. So what we can do is they can click on these entities, and it opens up a new application tab that will bring up their overview. And I've had enough lag time or idle time here. It takes a little bit of time to bring it back up. But anyway, this kind of gets down into the details of their giving and such, and their address info and how to contact them and all that. But you haven't navigated away from your map, so you still have your workspace here. The next thing is we gave this a directions link, so they can click on directions, and this opens up a whole new window to Google Maps. And again, it just plugs in the address. But a development officer can get directions. This is all familiar to them. A lot of people know about Google Maps and how it works. You can get down to the street level view and see the actual house itself. And so it gives them a lot of tools to be able to know where they're going and who they want to go see. If we close that, we're right back to where we were. So again, we haven't lost all the filtering that we've done and all that.
And is there a way, there was a question that came in, Jeff, to export a filtered list then into Excel, or is it just in the online interface?
It's just in the online interface. And again, we give them those spreadsheets so they can do way finer filtering within Excel than what we can ever hope to do here. And so
sure.
we didn't even think about implementing something to that effect. So,
yeah.
So the way we've designed it, no, we don't offer that.
Right. And we had another question come in about whether the same API and geocode could apply within other donor databases such as Razor's Edge or Banner Millennium. I assume so. You worked in advance because that's what you has and is present there, but the same concept could apply, right?
Right. We have Advanced. Advanced happens to be a web application. With web applications, you can do these web application interfaces. So the Smarty Streets doesn't really have anything to do with what we see here. It's just what gives us the data to do the geocoding that happens as a separate process. But again, we go into the database, and the database just runs as a program. It makes a connection to Smarty Streets, gets the information, and stores it. And then here, what we're doing is what you see here is all stored in our database. Even the map itself, the HTML code is stored in our database. And so all it does is bring it to the screen. But since it's all HTML and JavaScript and such, you can move things around, you can zoom in, you can do everything that you could have done if you're on Google. So we basically took Google's program and brought it forth and stored that information.
And implementations in Razor's Edge or Millennium or Banner Advancement may be a little different because Advance has really got a neat way to integrate things from outside. So, in their product demos, they'll often show, well, you can do driving directions to somebody's house, or you can, you can pull up Google Maps or Yahoo Maps or MapQuest or whatever. So, like Jeff said, because it is a web app, you can do that, and the way they've designed it with these applications and forms make it really easy to pull things in from the internet. And we really can't speak to how Razor's Edge or Banner Advancement might do that. I know both of those are web apps, so there's probably a way to do it. It just may not be implemented exactly as it would be in this case.
Right.
Sure.
And again, you have everything that you do, like you would have the satellite view, all that stuff. It all works, and so that's the beauty of how this works with what Google has provided as a free resource. So it's really amazing that we can do so much without having to spend $1.
What's really amazing is that there was no spend, and the entire thing was designed soup to nuts in a month.
Right. Yeah. We had it in production in 2 weeks, and we had it completely automated in another 2 weeks. So yeah.
And how has it been received by your gift officers?
Oh, I think really well, Kat. I think this is Twyla, I'm sorry, from Prospect Research. I think one of the most valuable things about it from our perspective has been just sort of helping with the buy-in to using the data itself, because I think it gives the development officers, as David and Jeff both alluded to earlier, I think it gives them a way to interact with that data in a way that a lot of them are more comfortable with than the Excel spreadsheet. And then what we're starting to see happen is they're coming back around then to starting to use some of the information in the Excel spreadsheet format because they are kind of more comfortable with it, having been able to see it plotted out on the map. So I think, what I'm saying, I think one's kind of feeding the other.
That's great, because for those who need that visual interface, it gives them a portal in to then be able to use the other kind of information as well.
Right, and what we liked about it is it's so familiar. Everybody's familiar with this,
Right.
Kat, this is Beth Mullenbrock. I just wanted to add one thing to that, too. I know real early on we got feedback from one development officer, and he had discovered this brand new name, and the name had been on that spreadsheet forever and ever, and we'd pushed it forever and ever, but once he saw the pin on the map, he found somebody.
It was like there was an actual human.
Right, right, and
it
resulted in a visit, so, I wanted to speak, too, to our time frame. We were trying to push this because we were trying to kind of rebuild portfolios, and we had new leadership, and they had a new take on what a portfolio meant and what assignment meant, and so we were really front-loading a bunch of portfolio development, and we wanted this to be a tool in front of the development officers to help them build their portfolios.
That's great, and really build a sense of who they were receiving of these anonymous names.
And to look at it geographically, because of course they have to plan out their year for their travel. So this gave them concentrations, and to say, well, it does make sense for me to go to Phoenix, or no, it doesn't.
We received 2 questions about sort of technical questions relative to addresses. One was about if you had pre-formatted through NCOA standards and whether that made a difference, and whether you did this for any international entities or not.
Okay. Smarty Streets has 2 services. One is address cleansing, and the other one is geocoding. And so we pass the address to them. They cleanse it on the fly when they do the geocode. So we do our best to do what we need to do to make that as clean as possible, but it actually does go through a cleansing process before we get a return on the geocode. And as far as the international, I'm pretty sure that Smarty Streets has not done any international. They started out geocoding just based off of census data, and so it was a real broad geocode that would come back. You know, you might have like the halfway point of a street or an intersection or something like that. But in just the last 2 months, I have been getting, because we have an account with them now, so we get some updates. They are now using a new method of geocoding, which goes along the same lines of what TomTom uses and other GPS type devices use. And so they're getting better and better. And since we heard that, I had basically re-geocoded the entire group. So we had once I found that out, I just basically took all the addresses that we had that were tracking for all these maps, and I basically set their mod date to null, so that the modification date to null, and it re-geocoded the whole shooting match. And so we got the best, you know, we updated all our geocodes, not just the ones that we changed as far as addresses. I know that they're starting a venture into international, but I don't think they've gotten very far. So for international, and the reason I know part of this was after I did the same presentation for the Advanced Special Interest Group on this, we had some that were in Canada and some other countries that were wanting to use the same service, and they found when they tried to set up with Smarty Streets that they did not support international addresses at that time, and that was about 2 or 3 months ago. So so I think at this point, Smarty Streets is not your solution for international. Not to say that you couldn't by using another source.
Sure.
Now Google doesn't care. All it cares about is the coordinates. It's worldwide. It doesn't matter. So. Right.
Well, thank you all so much. We have gotten up to the very end of our time, and those of us on the presentation are happy to stick around for a couple more questions. We're going to open the poll, so as you exit from it, you'll see a poll about the webinar. But thank you to Jeff and David and Beth and Twyla and all those of you who were on the call today. This is such an exciting example of putting data into people's hands in a powerful way, and we were delighted to be able to share this with everyone on the call, and thank you to all of our presenters today. We really, really appreciate your time. And so we're going to stay on. If anyone has a couple more questions on the chat, we'll be here for the next few minutes. And for the rest of you, we hope that this provides an exciting way for you to be able to put something new in your guest officer's hands as well.